So
Right.
welcome everyone to the Town of Richmond Planning Commission meeting for Wednesday, June 4th, 2025. It looks like we have a quorum. We have 5 members of the Planning Commission, and we have Keith and we have MMC TV, so we're good to go. So we'll start by reviewing the agenda, and there's no public here, so there won't be any public comment on non-agenda items except for the MMC TV people if they want to comment. Any questions or concerns about the agenda? Hi, Rebecca. Glad you could make it. We're good. Mark, great. And we know Brighton is not able to come tonight, so I think we've got everybody. That's great. So it looks like Tom we've got for MMC TV. Okay, any comments about the agenda? Anything anybody wants to change? There are some documents that are posted in the meeting material that we're going to talk about later in the meeting that are for your information. So they're not really on the agenda except to update you that they exist, those documents. So we'll go over them under number 7. All right, so not hearing any comments about the agenda, corrections or additions, we'll continue with the posted agenda. And we'll go to number 4, which is to look at the minutes of our May 21st meeting. Anybody have any corrections, additions, anything to add to the May 21st meeting? Okay, not hearing any comments, not seeing any hands. We will accept those minutes into the record as written. Okay. Now we're going to go to item number 5. Review the select board hearing of a couple of days ago, 6/2/25, on our Jolina Court amendment packet. And what I'd like to do is I'd like to have Keith start by reading the motion that was approved unanimously at the select board on Monday.
I wasn't prepared for that, but I can do it, I think.
It's also posted in your packet, so if you want to read it that way, that's fine too, but
all right, so this is a quick synopsis. The minutes haven't been approved by the select board at this point in time, but this motion was approved back on June 2nd. So these are basically the instructions to the planning commission for the zoning amendments to section 3.9, Jolina Court, 512, plan unit development, and the new amendment 615 residential density bonus program and 616 affordable housing. Myself and I'm trying to think of all who was there, Virginia. And it was myself, you, Chris, and Ian, I believe, was there also. And I don't think I saw anybody else though. But anyway, so basically the instructions were the canned ones are not in bold. So per 24 VSA, I moved to close the public hearing, the following conditions, revision instructions to planning commission. So what they did is they moved to instruct us or you to amend sections 3.9 to increase the base density to 24 units per developable acre with a total density of up to 30 units per developable acre if all bonuses are utilized. Residential bonus programs should be revised to exclude the parking bonus option in section 6.15 and to remove the first floor commercial requirement as presented from section 512 and to continue to implement the section 616 per state statute. So basically verbatim on 616. And what follows is the actual language in the statute. And then we had to close that public hearing because we made substantial changes, substantive changes. And as such, we have to notice a new public hearing. And that was the second motion. So we'll be going back with the revisions as directed on August 4th to the select board. And then assuming they approve it then, 21 days after that, this will be law. So that's where we're at.
Okay, thank you, Keith. Yep. So in the intervening 2 days since Monday, these instructions are very specific, very explicit, and relatively easy to do. So I put together a draft of how we want to do this, which we can now look at. It's in your packet, and we can pull it up and we can easily go through it line by line and likely approve that tonight. So we'll start by looking. Any questions about anything so far? About what happened or where we're going? Anyway, so we're now making these revisions. Here's a draft of how they'll look. So the Jolina Court District.
Oh, excuse me, I do have a question.
Yes, Ian.
I was there, but I kind of I left, I think, before you guys finished. How was it that the parking requirement was removed from the bonus program? Or was it? Am I misreading that?
No, it was removed. That was in the motion, and it was made by Adam. They didn't talk that much about it.
Okay.
But they decided that they wanted the bonus program to relate to housing, basically. The point of the bonus program was about housing, so they wanted the bonuses to be related to housing. That's about all they said, and the motion was made and everybody on the select board voted for it. So that's all I can tell you.
Good enough.
Okay, so section 3.9. The only thing they changed, if you want to scroll ahead, Keith, not the uses, that's all the same. The uses, blah, blah, blah. So, okay, you skipped over. And in section 3.9.4, the residential density and requirements, I don't know why that's in blue and not red, but anyway, the maximum base residential density is 24 units per developable acre. And the second part, B, residential density bonus units that meet the requirements of 6.15 shall be allowed in addition to base density units not to exceed a maximum total residential density, i.e. base density plus bonus density, of 30 units per developable acre. So that's that. And that is the only thing that was changed in section 3.9. The height was briefly talked about, and people decided on the select board that they wanted to have a more complete discussion about being able to increase the height. So it was not taken up. Okay, keeping on. No other changes were made to our proposal for section 3.9. Okay, so we go now to section 5.12, which is the PUD section. And the only part of the PUD section that appears before you is the two subsections that have been affected. Section B basically allows a residential PUD in the JC district. We had already suggested that. We agreed to it last time when we talked about removing the 4/5 of the ground floor of building 1 and the whole ground floor of building 2, allowing those to be in commercial, in residential use. So section G was rewritten to say, and we did talk about this last time, that residential uses shall be allowed on any floor except for any building fronting directly onto Bridge Street, in which case 20%, and we changed the 900 square feet to 20% of the ground floor nearest to Bridge Street shall be restricted to commercial use. So that shouldn't be any surprise to anyone because we did talk about that at our last meeting, and we were going to change it to the 20%. So that's that. The next portion is section 6.15. This is the residential density bonus piece. So what happened here was we removed any references to parking spaces being an option as per instructions of the select board. So in other words, there are not 3 options for residential density bonus units. There are now 2 options. One is for affordable units
Whoops.
at the same rate, and the other is for accessible adaptable units at the same rate. They didn't change our rates or anything else about it. They liked the density bonus program in general. There was some interest in inclusionary zoning, which is the carrot and stick approach. We just went for the carrot approach as a, you know, an initial entry into this idea that we could influence people to put affordable units or accessible units. So the words, the parking option appeared in several subsections here. Basically, we took it out wherever it appeared. So Ian, you have a question?
Yeah, did you get a sense of how Buttermilk felt about this language?
Yeah.
Well, go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say, you know, all along Josie has been interested in the 24 units per developable acre as base residential. She said it is unlikely that they will use the other density bonuses because they won't be able to get financing if there's any restrictions on their foreseeable future income.
Mhm.
So that's the sense I got. Keith, what about you? I know she's talked to you.
Yeah, she was not unhappy. Let's put it to you that way.
Not unhappy.
Correct.
That's good.
Happy, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think I've talked to Josie at length about this too. I mean, her first priority was to get Unit 1 changed, and she got that. I think that we're not going to see anything happen with Unit 2 in the short term. Josie's been pretty clear. And I think that Brendan backed her up one time too, that they're just not going to move while the interest rates are as high as they are. But I also think that it's true that when the economic environment changes, it's almost like a restart. We'll have to see what they want to do at that point. But, I feel like we get caught up in this a lot. I think we just have to assume that any developer coming before the planning commission or the DRB for that matter is going to argue for the least regulatory encumbrances possible. I mean, that is just what developers, not because they're bad, but because that's gives them the greatest degrees of freedom and gives them the most possibility of having a successful project before they break ground.
Yeah. And members of the housing committee appeared at this hearing to talk about their interest in removing barriers to housing, and that it's hard enough to get developers to want to build anything in Richmond anyway. So putting in something like inclusionary zoning would not be helpful. They were not opposed to the carrot approach with the density bonus idea, but they spoke strongly about the need for additional housing and in favor of the increased density. So just as an aside.
I think it's worth also noting in that context that Adam Wood, the member of the select board who is a developer, made a statement that I just thought he put it well, is we can't build our way out of the current lack of affordable housing.
Yeah.
That there's a lot going on in the residential construction market, including the advent of new tools that landlords use to set rents and tolerate higher vacancy levels, which I wasn't aware of and is a scary thing. And I think that I've tried to make the point much less eloquently in this committee before, and it was interesting to hear Adam make the same point in the select board.
Yeah, and I think it was good that he had been on the planning commission also. So
Yeah,
he
very much.
he knew the process. He had been on this committee when we first started talking about this, so he kind of understood what was going on, and also, as Chris mentioned, had that perspective as a builder. So that's what we've got. That's the packet. Does anyone have any questions about it? You haven't had very much time to look at it, but it was pretty simple, the instructions.
Could you go over the process again, Virginia, just to be clear about sort of what the next steps are?
So the next step here would be, if we're comfortable with this, we can approve it tonight for transmittal back to the select board to undergo a new public hearing.
It also has to be rewarned with the state, and it has to be sent to the abutting municipalities and regional planning, as well as the Department of Housing and Community Development.
Yeah, we have the bylaw amendment we have to write. We have to put together a full red line of the zoning regulation, because the select board will be approving a whole new zoning regulation. So everything has to be in there based on the most recent version of the zoning regulation, which is very recent because we put the flood hazard overlay district in fairly recently. So
Yes.
we have a relatively new edition of that, and we will add this language into that and make a whole new red line of the zoning ordinance.
Yep.
So, and they will take it up at their August 4th hearing. They will have a public hearing. That we do not have to have a public hearing about it. We are just following the instructions of the select board. So that is, if you're happy with this, the way these documents look, then we can approve it tonight and it will be off our program.
And we don't have a second meeting this month, so just a reminder there.
Mhm.
Anybody have any concerns or questions about this?
A subsequent conversation with Adam, we just ran into each other, and he asked me on both the of both of the density bonuses, how the definitions were derived, and I said that we pulled them from other places. And I think in the draft that we gave them, maybe, which was, it wasn't, the sources weren't listed or something, or maybe he hadn't seen them, but they're here, right? They're right here in this draft for both the, what's the definition of of someone who'd be eligible for the affordable units.
Mhm.
Also, what is a accessible unit? That was what he was interested in.
Mhm.
But the sources, I'm just checking here as I look at it, the sources are both listed here, right?
Yeah, we did add those in. Let's see if we can pull.
Yeah, there's 615.6.2 affordable housing for this section. Means housing is specified in the most current Vermont Housing Finance Agency chart. Okay, so that's taken care of. And then let's see, where's
So
accept
6.15.4A, let's see, talks about the accessible adaptable.
for, yeah, there we go. Okay. And that references, oh.
Actually, it's in 6.15.5.1,
Yeah, okay.
which references the Uniform Federal Accessibility Standards and the Vermont Access Board, which sets accessibility standards and whose role is to make sure that housing can safely house both people with physical disabilities and those who would visit people with physical disabilities.
Yeah, now this, I'm noticing here that this says are based upon, does, rather than comply with, is there a reason that we didn't make it more prescriptive?
Well, the 400 square feet is not one of those standards. That was taken from some other documents, like the AARP document that we had access to, which suggested that as a giving you room to maneuver. So,
Okay,
so it does, I mean, comply with
but it's not just that, it's
the
other,
okay, but there's a couple of other things in there that came from the universal design policy, for instance, of the Vermont Housing Finance Agency and Vermont access rules for adaptable and visitable dwelling units. And then we did also look at the AARP document that made suggestions. So that is not referenced. We could put that in.
I think the important thing is here is that this is not referencing a standard maintained by another body or anything. This is a unique standard that we're proposing.
It is standalone, yes.
It's a
Okay,
unique standard, but it's almost entirely the same standards from these other people.
well, yeah, but it's unique, even if it were drawn from exactly from these other standards, the fact that it's combining them makes it unique.
Right.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Do you think that the select board is going to want more than that?
I don't know. I think this answers Adam's question, that they can always ask us if they want more info.
Yeah.
I agree. Yeah.
They did not mention anything about that in their instructions to us, that we
No.
needed to revise in any way the other options for residential density bonuses. So
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So anyway, if they want to spend more time with it, you know, if we send it to them ASAP, they will have plenty of time to think about if there's anything else they want to do with it.
Well, they'd have to redo everything all over again, because they've already given us the directions by which they want us to return to.
Mhm.
Yeah, so I mean, we're stuck at this point unless they change it again, which they can.
Yeah.
Mhm.
See how hazy it is.
So does anyone need more time with this? Do you want to make a motion to approve it for transmittal to the select board? What do you want to do here?
We would like to move that we transmit this submittal to the select board as drafted here.
Okay, let's see, I did write a motion.
Okay,
So a suggested motion would be I blank move to approve the documents presented to the Planning Commission on 6/4/25 containing revisions to sections 3.9 and 5.12 and adding new sections 6.15 and 6.16 to the Richmond zoning regulation. These revised documents will be transmitted back to the select board for their public hearing process on August 4th, 2025.
what Virginia said, inserting my name in appropriate place.
Okay, great. Is there a second to that motion?
I will second it.
Okay, that sounds like Allison.
That sounds like Allison.
Yay, we're glad you're here.
Thank you.
I will third it.
Okay,
Somebody's thirding it.
good,
Okay.
good,
All
good.
right.
We're up to thirds.
Let's-
Any further discussion about it?
Yeah, please, if I could,
Yes, go ahead, Mark.
why are we voting on this in the first place? We're basically been told by the select board to do something, period. And
Mhm.
now we did it. And now we have to vote that we agree with what they're telling us to do? Or are we just approving the language that they told us what to do? Because it's not what we approved. It's not what we sent forward to them. And now they're like, okay, we're changing everything, a lot of what you said. Now vote on it and like it. Is that the question to us? Because it's not our decision anymore. They've told us what we need to do. We're nothing more than copywriters.
Yeah, well, you don't have to like it. They're not asking you to like it.
That's
but
right.
They're asking us
So why are we voting then?
because
Wait.
we're giving them this particular language, which is carrying out their instructions. So
Isn't it
you're
already
agreeing,
out of our hands? I mean, this is just the select board's purview now. They've dictated what they want to change. We edited it for them, but I mean, maybe you guys want to vote on it and you're approve of the changes. You know, and that's a thing that
Yeah.
we can endorse their decision, but it seems kind of silly that we have the fallacy that we have any decision in this process.
yeah, well, we could have changed this language slightly differently. And then, so,
It still says the same thing.
Has his hand up.
yeah, Ian,
I was gonna say, you don't have to vote to approve it. Right now.
Or
If
you
you
can
don't,
vote against
we
it
did.
also. So
right, yeah.
in a minute, the motion has been
Yeah.
made and seconded, and I'm going to ask who would like to approve this transmittal of this document to the select board.
But I think we're still in discussion. So
Yeah, I was just saying, I mean, and not more to Mark to say you can vote no. I think, so you do have, you do have a veto vote. If there's a majority of the board that doesn't like it, then it wouldn't go back to the select board, right?
It's already in the select board's hands.
Yeah.
That's just it. It's not in our hands to make this decision.
Yeah.
They've dictated what they want it to say, and they are the select board, and therefore they can say it and make Keith do the typing to change it, and you wordsmith it. But there's no decision being made here by the planning commission. It's completely out of our hands.
But
So this is just a posturing vote to endorse what the select board says. Then maybe the planning commission wants to vote on that, but I don't think the planning commission has to vote on approving the language in the document.
Are,
Okay.
are you not voting to forward it? Not necessarily the language, you're voting on accomplishing an action, that's all.
So
Yeah,
we're
right.
voting on,
hands, please.
Hold on just a second. Go ahead, Chris, you have your hand up.
Yeah, so I think we need to maybe have a little refresher on just sort of who has decision-making authority here. It's the select board. It always has been the select board. What we do is look at all the issues involved and prepare language that's relevant, in the context of the town's zoning, to achieve what the select board told us they wanted to achieve. We took a whack at it. They largely liked what we did, but they did want to make one change. What they didn't say in so many words is, we're not that familiar with all the details here. This is multiple pages of regulation. We're not going to edit it on the fly during this meeting. We're going to send it back to the planning commission and say, we want this policy to be reflected. Please change the language so that is reflected in what you send back to us, trusting us because we're the experts on how this all fits into the zoning to make it work. And, that's what we've done. Now, what we're doing by voting on it is saying that we, not just one person or two in the planning commission, have looked at it and think that this now reflects what the select board has told us they want to do and should work.
Yeah.
It-
So
is
a
that-
no
is that
vote, a
reflected in
no
the
vote
language?
is actually, you don't think that this reflects what the select board has told us to do.
Yeah.
We are voting on language that you agree has carried out the wishes of the select board. That's what the voting is about. So,
Yeah,
Sounds like we're endorsing their
well,
decision.
that's
Right.
not what we're doing.
Okay, as long as you have, and everybody here has made clear that that's what this vote is. It's not an endorsement of their decision, but simply that we have typed the correct words that they told us to type.
Exactly.
We're not asked for our endorsement.
Yeah, no, they don't care whether we like it or whether we endorse it. They know what our proposal was. They changed it. So this vote is saying, yes, we have changed it the way you wanted us to change it. Ian,
So if we voted not to, they could just write it themselves and vote on it.
Sure.
well,
And-
no, they would send it back to us and say, what's your problem with
Yeah.
it? I
yeah.
mean,
No,
you
they
know,
wouldn't.
We could also edit it during
So-
the meeting and accuse us of not doing our job, and they would probably be right.
yeah. So Ian, if you voted no, you would need a
No.
reason. You think the language is wrong. You think it is not carrying out the wishes of the select board. How would you change it? Because it's gonna
Right.
come back to us to change it correctly according to their wishes if we vote no.
Okay, these are theoretical questions by me, not
Understood.
substantive.
Go ahead.
Yeah, okay.
Right.
Thanks.
All right.
Thank
So,
you for the answer.
yeah. So I would advise you to vote yes if you think it carries out the wishes of the select board and you're ready to transmit it back. Otherwise, you can vote no or abstain. So I'm going to ask for a vote by name, if you could, Chris.
I'm sorry, Virginia, sorry to interrupt, but before we close the discussion to do
Yes.
that,
Okay,
I just want to make sure, I mean, it seems like there are concerns, and we've talked a little bit about procedure here, but I think it's worthwhile people voicing what the actual concerns are with the elimination of the parking part, which is, I assume that's what people are concerned about. I mean, I think that's worth airing, don't you?
sure. Mark, you want to talk about your concerns with the parking? I mean,
No,
yeah.
there's no point.
Yeah.
Why waste our time?
Right.
The select board has made this decision. And we can either vote yes, no, or in my case, abstain from basically being an editor
Mhm.
with their dictates.
Yeah.
So I don't want to give any impression that I am endorsing their decision, and I'm afraid that a yes vote could be interpreted like that.
Okay. Yeah, no, the only place that the parking could have been defended would be at their hearing that was on Monday. So,
Or the increase to 24 units without any perks, because they're not gonna. So it's just gonna be 72 units in there.
mhm,
Another 58 units
yeah,
without any perks or benefits for the town, other than some pretty interesting traffic
yeah, well,
conditions.
this has been given to them to make this decision. If we were to make the decision, we would have made the decision already with the proposal that we submitted.
That's right.
We are not allowed to make this decision. We are not given the authority to make the decision, so we're gonna have to give it up, I think.
We can encourage people to participate in a lively debate before the select board takes it up, though.
Yeah, yeah.
Again,
And we can give I mean, the select board really looks to us to make the case for what we present. And, as Virginia said, I think to some extent it's incumbent on people who represent a particular point of view to show up at the meeting where that's discussed in front of the select board. We presented it as a package. I mean, they'd already received the recommendation. So, this was basically the window for the conversation between the planning commission and the select board.
So August 4th, they will have a public hearing, and we can post another front porch forum, which I did prior to the Monday hearing. Last week, I posted one to encourage people to go and to voice their opinion. We can post another one for the August 4th hearing. And there were quite a few people there, actually, over the Zoom, mostly on the Zoom. There were quite a few members of the public there, several of whom spoke, or a number of whom spoke. So, you know, it was a 2-hour conversation instead of a 35-minute conversation, which they had allotted 35 minutes for the conversation, which seemed pretty small. And of course, it went longer than that, because a lot of people did have things to say. And we hope the select board took those things under consideration.
Yeah.
All right, any more comments that people want to make? Okay, so if you could state your name and your vote to transmit this back as written to the select board for their public hearing process. Chris.
Chris Granda, aye.
Ian.
Ian Bender, aye.
Mark.
Mark, abstain.
Okay. Allison.
Yes.
Allison votes aye. Rebecca
Aye.
votes aye. Okay, so the motion passes, and we will transmit this document back to the select board along with the full red line of the whole zoning document and the bylaw amendment report and all of those other notifications that have to be warned again because this is a new public hearing. Okay. So that's that. And there was, as part of this discussion, a brief discussion about Tier 1B, but they postponed that discussion also to their next meeting, I think. Is that right, Keith? Is that to their July meeting?
I'm
The
sorry, what's that?
discussion on Tier 1B
That's this next meeting.
at the next meeting, at the July meeting.
Correct.
and-
No, the next June meeting.
Okay, yeah, there's another June meeting, their next June meeting, yep. They went all the way out to August in case we needed more time to work with this, but the instructions were so explicit that it didn't really need very much time to actually put them together. Okay. So we can talk some about Tier 1B when we get down to the other business, because there are some documents in the packet about Tier 1B. So, but the next thing that is important for us to do is to support the steering committee in the staffing of their outreach events that are planned. So the outreach, and Ian is in charge of the sign-up sheet, which he's going to talk about, and we're going to show you the options in a minute. But we have 2 farmers markets, a 4th of July tabling, and the 2 days of workshops or charrettes in the library. So we need to have people at all of those events, and the Planning Commission is actually in charge of this document. It is our responsibility to produce the town plan and to update it properly every 8 years. So since we're not having a second June meeting, I am hoping that the planning commissioners will jump in and work with the steering committee on staffing these events so that we have people who can talk about this, who can hand out handouts. We're going to have printed material to be given out. We're going to have posters. We're going to have lots of pictures of Richmond. We're going to have activities for people to do to provide outreach. So we just need people, and the steering committee cannot do it all by themselves. There just aren't enough. Chris.
Yeah, I want to just support that. I did the town plan last time, as I think some of the other folks here did, and It takes a lot of work, but it's makes it a lot better for everybody. Chips in, I've signed up. However, I am going to ask if you'll excuse me. I think as you can probably tell, I'm fighting a pretty bad head cold tonight and not feeling well. So I'm going to call for everybody to sign up, but I'm going to sign off. Do will you still have a quorum if I do that?
Yes.
Yes.
You're good.
Yep.
Okay,
You're
so
okay.
excuse me and please accept my apologies.
Yes, not COVID, I hope.
I did a test and I do not have COVID, at least according to the test. So
Okay, that's
I think
good.
it's just a head cold.
And
Yeah.
thank you, Chris, for signing up. I saw you filled the slot there.
Yeah, unfortunately, I can't do it during the weekdays, but that I can do it. And also, I'm away one of the weekends. But you can move me around too on that day if necessary.
Okay.
Okay, great.
Great, thanks everyone.
Yeah. All right,
Good.
thank you, Chris. Okay, so can you show that sign up sheet? Somebody can
cannot.
show it? You can't show it?
Keith, can you?
Hang on a sec. I'd have to go to my emails here.
Yeah, I mean, I think I have it pulled up. I might be able to show it.
Un momento, por favor. See there, Ian? It's all coming back. All that Spanish.
Yep. Huevos rancheros.
Yeah, there you go. I love it.
All right, so here's the sign up sheet. So the farmer's market, there's going to be on 6/13, so June 13th, which is coming up next week, and on 6/27. And then there's going to be the July 4th tabling, which is, you know, kind of all day, 10 to 3 kind of thing, I think. And then we have the 2 days of the workshops. And at some point, we can give you more details. The details of these are all underway and being planned, what the setup is going to be. And obviously, we'll be giving that to the Planning Commission so that they know exactly what they're set up for. But it's basically, you're going to be at a table. There will be materials to give out. You will be taking in outreach. You will be helping people do the survey that is out there if they need help with that. We're going to have information about our current and future challenges. For instance, Airbnb, do people want to do something or do they not want to do something? We're going to have, like I said, activities where you can put thoughts on what you want or don't want. We may have some information from the beginning of the new draft from information we've already received. So that's what you're going to be doing, and hopefully talking to people based on this literature that you have to give them about what's in the old plan and how it could be made better in the new plan. So, Allison, would you like to sign up for any of these items?
Well, I was just thinking about that. And thinking that I would be happy to include some kind of event at the swimming pool that would fit in with this, that would benefit it. I don't have that figured out in my brain at this particular moment, but you can count me in as somebody that is willing to definitely contribute and contribute the swimming pool in some fashion.
Yes, well, we would like to think about maybe August for a pool party, or the beginning of September when we have a draft.
Okay.
This is part of our outreach, and we need people like now for this.
Yeah, Allison, we need you at these events. With your vast experience in Richmond, yeah, you have a lot to offer to people, so you
Thank you.
should join us.
That's
And
a
we will
fine
help with the pool
compliment.
party
Thank you,
come
Ian.
August.
Thank you, Ian.
You're welcome. No
Yeah,
pressure.
No, 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 it's okay. I'm just sitting here listening to all of this and thinking to myself, I do wish to contribute in some way. Let me tell you that there has been, I'll be very honest with you, there has been a kind of a holdup with the swimming pool because of the floods that we have had.
Mhm.
I have I have had a very hard time keeping the flooding out of the farmhouse that's part of this whole pool complex. And a lot of my energy has been devoted to that instead of, working more for the planning commission and some of those things, that a lot of it has just been a matter of survival. And I think that the government has actually designated some of Huntington Road as a disaster area or something. I'm not sure about the details there, but that sounds kind of encouraging to me. Also, my tenant Andrea, who occupies the other part of my farmhouse here, was called into service. She's in the National Guard, and she's been over in Eastern Greece, and she just got back this afternoon. And I'm really excited about that. So I'm kind of in a position right now where I hope you'll accept my sincere endeavor to do something to help it with this whole thing, but the details I have not developed yet.
Okay.
So you can't do any of these dates. Is that what I'm hearing?
No, I don't know that. Which dates are you talking about?
Okay, the farmer's market on 6/13, it's 3 hours, 3 to 6. You could come for 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours.
I could show my face.
There's a farmer's market on 6/27. Can we look at the chart again?
Yeah, it was so sent to you earlier, Allison. So keep that in mind.
Yeah, so, and it's just going to be talking about the same issues that we talk about at the Planning
Okay.
Commission: housing, energy use,
Right.
rural character, flooding, those issues. So here are the
Mhm.
farmers markets. You can see on your screen 6/13.
Mm-hmm.
It's a Friday.
I would be glad to participate in many of those. You just have to understand that my particular problem that I've had so far has simply been saving my house from drowning in all of this. Yeah, I can't tell you how much trouble I've had just saving my house with these floods.
Sorry.
Yeah, well, obviously that's, your primary thing that you have to
Well,
do.
that doesn't mean I'm not interested in the rest of you. It means
Yeah.
there's so many hours in the day, and I've just had some real challenges.
But if you could find, the reason that we want people to sign up is not just like show up at the last minute.
Yes.
It's because we want to make sure that there's somebody there throughout
Sure.
all the different hours. So if possible, you could look at these times and think about what would work for you, like 2 to 4 p.m. Would that
Sure.
work on the 13th, on the 27th, 2 to 4 p.m., or more like 4 to 6 p.m.? Are any of those times, are they like less busy for you than other times?
Oh, looking at it at this precise minute, all I can say is I'll work something out. Definitely. I'll do something. I don't have that all figured out right now. I'm sorry to sound like I'm whining and moaning, but what has really been my main thing is to save this house.
Yeah.
This is a historic house. It's on the National Trust for Historic Preservation, and it has had very serious water in the basement for weeks now. And a lot of my personal time has just been from cleaning out the basement, emptying it out, and just preserving the building at all.
Yeah, well, so you'd be a good voice to talk about flooding at these events. So if you could just look at this list of times and dates and come up with
Okay.
some, that would be great. That would be very helpful. How about Mark? Can you sign up for any of these dates? I know you're going to be away for some part of this time.
I am going to be away until the July. So, and the 10th is a Thursday.
The 10th is a Thursday, the 12th is a Saturday.
Saturday I can help out. the
Okay,
12th.
so what time would you like to
I
sign
can
up?
show up for setup and maybe stick around for the first shift of the charrette.
Okay, so it's like 12 to, what do you have down there, Ian? 12 to
Well,
something?
I had to put 12 PM setup, and then I believe the charrette is from 1 to 3:30.
Yeah, the guests are expected from 1 to, no, it's from 1 to 6.
Oh, it's 1 to 6.
Charrette.
Oh, right, there's a second. I have to put that in.
Mhm.
I didn't realize that. Oh, no, it is in there.
You have
Yeah,
it?
it's in
Yep,
there.
Yeah.
you're good.
Okay, so we'll put you down for 12, Mark, on the Saturday of the charrette until maybe like 3 o'clock or something.
Yeah, we'll
You do
see.
that?
Yeah, I'm gonna be playing a lot of catch up, being gone for a month. So
Yeah. Well, we hope to have plenty of materials that you will be able to give out and things to point to and what have you. So,
yeah, Ian can bring me up to speed on when we're doing setup.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I'm gonna be, I'll be the guy,
yeah.
with all the info.
So,
You know,
Ian,
just so you guys know, there are gonna be, it's our expectation that there's gonna be several people that head up some of the other committees in town, like, conservation, parking, people that are kind of expert in various areas. So
Ian,
it won't just be us.
But it's tough to get commitments from people, I have to tell you.
Oh, yeah? Okay. Well,
So,
maybe it will just be us, but hopefully not.
well, and the steering committee members, will
Right,
be signing
right.
up, but we don't want the steering committee members to have to do all of these shifts.
Right.
And that doesn't leave very many people, and if one person at a table is talking to a guest, then there might be other people who would like to talk. So anyway, just the more staffing, the better job of staffing we can do, it will be more successful. So who else do we have? Rebecca, I think, signed up already for a couple of times.
Yeah, and the thing with the dates that fall on a work day,
Mm-hmm.
I can't sign up for those until a little bit before those days. Because
Okay.
I need to prioritize my work day, but
Mm-hmm.
I will keep this this document, on my tabs, and I'll sign up as soon as I know if I can.
Thanks.
Okay, that's great. That's helpful. And, if we can have a couple of people at least committed to each date, then other people showing up is fine, is excellent and helpful. So, yep. Okay, so I think that's it. That's all that we can do with that right now. Ian?
can you guys hear me?
Yeah?
Yeah, Ian, I'm there all day on the 10th.
Okay.
So that whole day, I'll be there all day.
I'll put your name in.
Yeah, this is Allison. What
Yeah.
did I sign up for?
You
Nothing.
didn't.
What?
You
You're
did
gonna get
not.
back to us.
Okay.
You haven't signed up for anything yet. We hope to get you to sign up at some point.
I will definitely sign up for something.
Okay.
I definitely will. I need to look at my schedule a little bit more, but you can count on me. And I also would like to offer the pool in some way that
Yeah.
would be positive to help this whole endeavor. So you can count on me for that support, and I'll figure out my schedule.
Okay. Yep. In a little while, we'll talk about the pool party when we get this other stuff underway. We're still in the outreach phase, and then we want to be
Yes.
presenting the initial
Yes.
draft, and that's a celebratory time, and maybe
Yeah.
won't work well with the pool party.
Right now, the pool is green.
Wait.
Okay.
It's not open yet. It's going to open next week.
Okay.
They're
Great.
coming to clean it up and open it up, and I'll be getting going there, and my energies will be very much transferred to that, depending on whatever before that they might have been. And I love this town. I've lived here for many years. I have actually had, I just want to say this one thing. I have had the privilege because I married someone from a foreign country. My father was in the service for a long time. I have traveled to very many parts of the world over the years, and I like it here.
Cool. That's great. There's another thing that you might want to be interested in too, Allison, which is in our charrette, our workshops in the library. We're
Yes.
going to have one section that is groups or committees, like the senior center has been invited, different committees to come and talk about what they do. This is a community building thing. So
Yeah.
you might want to come to that for a little while and talk about the fact that all the Richmond children have learned how to swim in your pool. Anyway, you can just think about that. We can talk about that later.
Well, that's a good idea, Virginia. Thank you for that idea.
Yeah, I think that might interest you, and you know, we can talk about flooding as well. So, anybody else have anything else to add to this document right now? I will be undoubtedly at most of these events. So, I'm not signed up yet, but I will, and I will probably be there for pretty much the entire time.
Virginia,
Yeah,
thank you.
you're
Thank
welcome.
you for
Yeah.
your efforts and your dedication to this town. I know that you had the same sentiments about this community that I do. Your line of work is different from mine, but you have put a lot of energy, a lot of time into helping this town, and I personally wish to thank you.
You're welcome. I enjoy it for sure. Okay, so I think that's it for right now. We'll have more information about what the steering committee is doing, maybe at our next meeting, which will be in July.
Gee, that's hard to believe.
Yeah, but because you have the second June meeting off is why we feel like you can sign up to be at these booths.
Okay.
So the only other thing that we want to talk about today is to review the few other documents, if you wish, that are in your packet for your information that you should know about. They are not necessarily things we have to do anything about, but you know, to be aware of what other planning efforts are being made. So that's the left-hand column of documents. The Tier 1B recommendation. So at our last meeting, there were some requests to clarify the pros and cons document and to state what our actual problem was with opting into Tier 1B. The Select Board still has not made a decision. So Brighton, who was very interested in this question, and I worked on this document that stated that our main concerns are we do not feel that we're necessarily in a position with our documents and our staffing have the ability to review these projects. So we are recommending not to opt in. So that letter that came from the Planning Commission was a rewrite of the previous letter that explained that that was actually our position with it, and that we understand that it's a good thing for more housing, but it's problematic in that we didn't feel that we could, at this point in time, as a small town with a small staff and an old document for the most part, properly make these determinations. So the Housing Committee, which I feel is doing a good job with standing on its own feet now and taking positions on things. I am a member of it, allegedly, but I didn't participate much in this Tier 1 question. They voted to opt in, and they have some advocates on the Housing Committee who are eloquent about the signal that it would give that Richmond is a town that welcomes housing and that it would be good to opt in. Neither the Planning Commission nor the Housing Commission believe that there are a lot of properties right now that would fall in the category of projects that opt-in would affect. But, so the Select Board at their next meeting is going to consider the recommendation of the Housing Committee, of the Regional Planning Commission, which recommends that we opt in, and the Planning Commission that recommends that we don't opt in. They're going to have to take this information in and make another decision, like about the Jolina Court. They're going to make a decision. This is in their authority packet. So just so that you're aware, that's where we are at with the Tier 1B question.
Yeah.
There's nothing we have to do about it right now. We've stated our position. The other people have stated their position. Now the Select Board is going to have to think about it and decide if our DRB, if our planning and administrative staff has enough time to do this work, if we want to spend money on it, etc. So, Mark.
Hey there. So yeah, I was actually wondering if we could get Keith's opinion as the planning director and zoning director on the expected added cost that we could incur.
Keith, you're muted.
Probably a good thing, to be honest with you. The extra costs would certainly be in staff time, Mark, for sure. No doubt about that. There are some pass-through costs that we can anticipate by signing up a consultant to help us with these reviews, specifically engineers. But those costs are passed through.
How are they passed through?
They're passed through.
The town doesn't have to hire the engineer, but the contractor hires the engineer?
So typically what the system we have in place is the request is for an initial $500 for review. It's anticipated they have to give that to us front-ended before we get the consultant. And then the consultant does its work. What's that?
Per year?
No, per project. And if the project, and if it runs over, then the request would be made to, you need to pay the rest of the costs for that in order to get your permit approved. You know, that would be a condition of approval at all costs. So really the cost of all this is staff time, to be honest with you. Obviously, if we need any attorney input, that is picked up by the town.
How close are our zoning regulations now to satisfying Tier 1B requirements?
That's a great question. Virginia and I were discussing that today, and we were definitely going to be putting some things on paper in that regard, such as what permits are required from the state. You know, we have a blanket coverage that says all state and federal permits must be submitted, approved before we can issue a permit after a DRB approval.
That's pretty much just stormwater, wastewater, and drinking water, though, right?
Yeah, it's those two. It's also wetlands. If flagged, it would be archaeology. And there are a couple other things. You've heard of the flyover for the airport, if that's involved in it at all. You know, there's a cone of approach over Richmond on that. But I don't think that is an issue right now. We don't have any really tall buildings at this point. So I wouldn't say it's minimal, Mark, to be honest with you. Because it is staff time, and you know that could be, you know, I mean that certainly could be added onto it.
I'm sorry, I'm a little hard of hearing. Allison, could you mute? I'm really sorry.
Sorry, am I making noise or something?
I thought I heard some conversation going on, but
I'll mute her.
Oh, geez.
I'm very hard of hearing now, and
Oh, I'm very sorry. Let me see.
No, it's not your fault. I'm just
I can
mute.
mute you,
All right.
Perfect.
Yeah, my feeling is that we do not have in place adequate regulations
I
to
agree.
look at the 10 criteria of Act 250. We don't have a lot of standards in our zoning ordinance. We have a lot of references to things that you have to think about, but that's all whatever the zoning administrator says. You know, he recommends to the DRB. Whether or not they think about it is up for grabs. There are no standards by which they would compare the project to the ordinance. So, you know, my feeling is that we would have to put a good amount of work into rewriting the ordinance. Now, that is possible. We move kind of slowly.
Do
So
we know what to change yet? I mean, there's a whole, I mean,
yeah,
that's almost like a grant funding in the first place, just to take a look at what we got and get us somewhere even close to being able to support 1B.
yeah. And it would have to be approved by our voters as well, you know, so we could recommend that we do all these things with our grant funded consultant, like 2012, we could recommend it and then it could fail. So, you know, there are a lot of gaps. There are a lot of places that projects, if there were any that fit the criteria of 1B, there were a lot of gaps that things could fall through the cracks at this point in time. Places like Williston, where they have a much bigger staff, where they have more robust, or South Burlington, more robust ordinances, they can do this work. So that was and it even takes kind of a lot of work to identify what it is that we're missing. You know what I mean, Mark? I mean, we'd have to look at the criteria. We'd have to understand what the Act 250 Commission really does, exactly what, you know, all of that kind of thing is the initial work that would have to be done in order to bring the ordinance up to the specs that we would need it to be.
What is the for us? I mean, assuming, right, we do all this work, how would we benefit as a town from be falling under this ordinance?
The way we would benefit is that we would supposedly get more housing, you know, that it would be easier for developers to build housing because they wouldn't have to spend the time and the money with Act 250. However, if we say we need studies and there are pass-through costs, they're still going to have to pay. They're just going to have to pay us. If it's going to take our small staff a very long time to do this because they have so many other things to do, then there's going to be the time thing anyway for them. So, you know, if it's easy for a town to administrate Act 250, then it will be a saving and it might enable more housing to be created. It's a gamble. It's kind of an if, you know. What's moot in a way is that there aren't that many parcels right now conceivable within the next 8 years, except for Jolina Court, that even in the water and sewer area that even would be big enough to have a project of between 10 and 50 units, you know, because it affects, we already have a 1B type situation with projects that are under 10 units, that they don't have to go through Act 250. They're exempted from going through Act 250. They have been for quite a while, which is why we have a lot of 9-unit projects. So in the water and sewer area, the village and planned growth areas, which is the only place that 1B applies, there aren't that many places that you could put a 10 to 50 unit project. In the future, and the Housing Committee talks about like the 30-year time frame or the 50-year time frame, maybe some lots will be consolidated and you will have a big enough lot that you could have a 10 to 50 unit project. In the next 8 years, it's probably not even going to be kind of an issue. So,
Other than Jolina Court.
Other than Jolina Court.
Right.
Jolina Court, since it now has increased residential density allowances, may fall in the 1B category. They are already under another Act 250 permit, so it's a little bit unclear whether they would have to get an amendment to their original permit or whether they would be exempt from getting an amendment to their original Act 250 permit. And the only way you can find that out is they would have to apply to Act 250 to get an opinion from the Act 250 board, which is being transformed into the new Land Use Resources Board, and
Lerp.
developing new rules, the LURB. Yeah, they're developing new rules. They'd have to get an opinion as to whether they fall within within 1B, or whether they actually would have to get an amendment to their original Act 250 permit. So that's a little complicated, but theoretically, if they wanted to build a project with up to 50 units like they're building 2, they could save some money and time, presumably, by not having to go through Act 250.
Yeah, I could send a link to everybody that explains the 10 criteria. It's not all strictly on an environmental review, as I just looked at that, and that should give you a little bit of idea what's going on. A lot of it we take care of. You'll see that when it comes to Cropsville. A lot of it we don't. Uh-oh.
Yeah. So anyway, that's the tier 1B question, and you know, there are reasons to do it, reasons not to do it. It would be nice if we could, for the next go round, the next 8-year regional plan, if we could have made our zoning regulations a little more up to date and robust. But we haven't, you know, we tried to do that all at once in 2012. That effort failed, so we came to the conclusion that we're doing it piece by piece. We've done some of it. The newer sections have some more teeth to them, but the whole DRB piece doesn't really have any parameters or teeth or standards or much of anything. So, all right, any other questions about that? So the next documents that are on here are some recommendations by other people besides the Planning Commission about the future land use maps. So a group of conservation people, including me, Brad Elliott, Bob Lowe, Wright Preston from the Andrews Forest Committee, Judy Rosofsky from the Conservation Committee. You know, I thought that somebody ought to be looking at this future land use map. The Planning Commission didn't really take it up and study it in detail. This group took it up and they made a recommendation. They made a map which they indicated some areas that needed more work relative to the conservation laws that are in the state of Vermont. And they wrote this memo that you can read on your own. It's their effort. Anybody can submit comments to the regional plan about their draft map. So this working group of people who are interested in conservation submitted it. And also the Housing Committee submitted a recommendation about the future land use map that is being drafted. And they had a couple of parcels that they identified as being possibly more able to be added to the transitional area where more growth is to be expected. Not the planned growth area, which was like the center of the water and sewer area, but on the outskirts of it, like the Far Farm transitional area. Doesn't make the FARs do anything that they don't want to, but in the future. And many people have had their eye on this little farm parcel for many years as a place that is right adjacent to the village. If we want more businesses or residences that are within a walking distance of the village, this would be the place to do it in the future if they want to do it. So the Housing Committee identified that as a parcel that they would like to put in this more of a transitional type category. And then there was
The-
one other
the
parcel
flooding
that's up on
issues?
Governor Peck Road.
Is it so far in the future that we're not really talking about the flooding issues, Virginia, for that area?
Well, the floodplain side of the Huntington Road would not be developable.
Yeah, okay.
So we're talking about the upland piece, which as you drive
Oh.
towards Huntington is on the left. There's about
Mhm.
30 acres there that's
Oh,
out of the
okay.
floodplain. It's
Okay.
an
Undulated.
upland piece of the farm. The FARs own lots of other parcels in Richmond, but that was the piece that was identified.
Okay.
This
I
is,
bought one of their parcels, so
yeah,
I
this
I
is
know
the,
that parcel.
you know it.
I know that parcel, but yeah.
Okay. This was the map that the Conservation Working Group put together. And it's a very general map. It doesn't actually make any specific recommendation, but it wants the Regional Planning Commission to look at those numbered areas and compare them with Vermont Conservation Design, with the 30 by 30, which the law that states, I think it's S59, states that 30% of Vermont has to be conserved by 2030. In number 1, it's the Andrews Forest. It's a lot of conserved land is already in that area. They wanted the Regional Planning Commission to take a better look at that. So they're not exactly making any recommendations. Some of these other areas have a lot of water in them, a lot of streams that are problematic. They wanted to make sure that that was taken into consideration. Number 4 is Robbins Mountain. So anyway, they took a kind of a general approach to the whole question and said, please look at these areas in more detail before putting them on your map. So, yeah, I think that's all. The memo talks about what they did with the map.
Yep.
And then the Housing Committee's recommendation with their 2 parcels, the Far Farm and the one on Governor Peck Road up behind the solar array, which, you know, is near the mobile home park and exit 11, that they felt should be some kind of a transitional area. So anyway, just for your information and look at it, you know, we didn't really study these maps in great detail as a planning commission. So anyway, we should be hearing soon from the Regional Planning Commission with they will be presenting their new draft map. Whether it has any changes based on what we said, we don't know. There were hundreds of comments from regular people that were entered into their portal for commentary. They will be bringing a draft map back to us to present at some point for further comments. So, you know, if you want to study these efforts by the working group and the Housing Committee, then that would at least, we would be more informed when we see the regional plan new draft map. So, and I think that's all the documents, the extra documents we put on there. We don't really have anything else that we need to talk about unless anybody else wants to talk about something right now. One thing that I would like to say is Keith is working as a zoning administrator right now, which is like a full-time job.
Joyous, absolutely joyous.
The steering committee and the town plan effort is taking up a lot of time. So unless other people on the planning commission want to step into the role of doing some preparation work, we're not really going to have enough time for the next few months. And people are going to be away, you know, it's summer. We're not going to have the ability to seriously take up any zoning issues. So if people want to take up zoning issues, they're going to have to step up and take up the issues. So what I would really like is for the planning commission to help the steering committee to wrap their hands around the rest of the outreach and the drafting of the new plan. And, you know, then when that's underway, then, you know, maybe we'll be able to go back to our regular zoning work, and hopefully we'll have a administrative assistant. Keith is still going to remain the zoning administrator, but he's going to have an assistant administrator who eventually, hopefully, will become the administrator. But it's going to be challenging to do this work.
Yeah, the other issue is I'm out of town for a good part of August. You know, definitely the second meeting, I will not be around. So, we'll front end whatever we need to do before I leave. I'm gone for 12 days in the middle of August, so.
Anyway, I'm open to any suggestions about how people want to move ahead. I think we kind of finished with the things that were on our plate.
Virginia, I have a quick question.
Yeah.
Other than participating in the kind of 5-year vision marketing effort, for lack of a better word, what other help does the steering committee need? Like what other tasks are needed to be done?
Well, I think I could give you a better idea about that after our next meeting. So right now we're working on, this is like the final outreach push so that we have as much information coming back from the public as possible, and that we have let the maximum number of people know that we're doing this and that they can get information about it, they can give information about it. You know, that is going to take us through the middle of July with those workshops at the library. There's lots of work that can be done to help facilitate, for instance, the workshops. So if you want to be involved in that, the subcommittee who's working on the workshops would be interested in your help. You know, the content of the general outline of how those workshops are going to work has been pretty much laid out, but we need the content. We need activities for people to do who, you know, aren't talking to whoever's there, to be talking to them and giving them information and giving them handouts. There may be some other people who could, for instance, be writing on a whiteboard or filling out cards or putting dots on a chart. Doing the survey, you know, who could be doing a printed version of the survey on a board. So arranging all of that would be helpful if you want to do that. And I know you have kind of an interest in community building events. This is that. Contacting.
Who would be the primary POC for me to reach out to just to see what I can do? You know, I just want to have a conversation. I need to make it manageable, but I am interested in being involved.
Can I chime in?
Yeah, Ian is.
Rebecca, you know, we have a meeting next Wednesday at 7 o'clock. It might be advantageous for you to attend, or maybe just be there for part of it, just to kind of see what we're talking about, to get a kind of feel for what we're doing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Where is that? Is that a Zoom?
There's a Zoom link for it.
There's a Zoom link, but we like people to come in person. It works better if you're in person, actually, in the small conference room on the ground floor of the town center building, right next to the town clerk's office. There's a little conference room, and we meet in there. And a lot of the work that has been done so far has been setting up systems, for instance, for managing the information that we get, you know, setting up the website, setting up the way this information is going to be handled, Keith's file system, you know, so we get all this information from people. What do we do with it? You know, how do we deal with it? How are we going to divide it up? And for planning for the exact content and logistics of these events.
Have we discussed how we're going to leverage AI to help us summarize everything?
Yep.
Okay.
There you go.
Yeah, so I'm happy to go to that Wednesday meeting. I am sorry if I'm a little behind. I don't know, like, is there an invite that I should be privy to?
Can we put her on the, well, so the town plan 2026 steering committee has a page
Okay,
on
then
the,
I'll just go to that.
yeah, and the agenda will be there starting tomorrow and for the meeting next Wednesday, and any documents that people want to submit. People don't seem to submit much. Mostly we talk about what we're doing. We're going to have a lot of updates on all of these different activities that we're doing. What are we doing exactly? How are we doing it? Who's doing it? All of that kind of
Okay.
stuff. So
Okay.
yeah, that'd be great. That would be very helpful. All right, anybody else have anything they want to talk about? All right, not hearing any. We could have a motion to adjourn. Chris isn't here, so somebody else is going to have to make it.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Okay,
Second.
all right. Does anyone object to adjourning at this early hour of 8:35? All right, not hearing any objections. The meeting stands adjourned. We will not meet a second time in June. Our next meeting will be July, whatever it is, 2nd.
Then I will not
And
attend.
you will not attend, right?
Yes,
Okay,
I will not.
okay,
I won't be there either.
okay, so that's fine. I don't know what's going to be on the agenda just yet, but you know, maybe some more steering committee and town plan work. I don't know. We'll have to see what comes up in the ensuing month and what we have time for. So anyway, great. So thanks for everybody for coming, and see you next time.
Good night.
Have a good night.